So, this is getting kind of exciting. Paul could see the curve of the great orange planet on his monitor generated by the view cameras positioned on the surface of the city's shell. It was a monster planet, bigger than he had ever been close to. The screen displayed the relevant data, circumference, weight, gravitational field, atmosphere, and so on. It wasn't as big as it looked, according to that info. It must be the lack of continents that gave it that imposing appearance. Ted, let's tell the folks what they are in for and head south. Ted flipped the array controls. You're on, boss. Paul's public address monitor flicked on once more. Okay, folks, we are ready for orbit and touchdown. Just hang on to your seats till we hit the ground, and we'll all be fine. The lights will be out and all the power will be routed to the shell, so relax and try to sleep if you can. If you must move around, do so with extreme caution and take your emergency partner with you. Let's all have a smooth trip and a fine touchdown. We'll see you on the surface. He clicked his comm link even before his screen went blank. Okay, Anna, Mike, you two got the ball. Set us down easy so we don't split this big girl in half. See you on the surface. Command station crew was ready, watching him expectantly. Okay, people, let's drop into orbit and head for home. They all turned to control panels and monitors to initiate all protocols for orbital entry. The room was crackling with suppressed excitement. 8 years in space was finally coming to an end. No one seemed to care what the planet looked like or how they would survive. They were simply looking forward to standing on solid ground they could call home. Dim red emergency LEDs and computer monitors were the only source of light. Paul could feel the gradual pull of gravity as the monster city ship was drawn into orbit around their new home planet. The presence of gravity reminded him that they were spinning. He hoped fervently he wouldn't get motion sick and puke, but anything could happen. He just needed to keep his mind busy with command concerns and not worry about it. Paul, we're going to enter atmosphere at accelerated speed, but not so fast that we will superheat. We can keep the shell frequency below that level and still control our gravitational pull. Here we go. Anna sounded like a schoolgirl at a carnival. She was more excited about testing her theories on a new operation than the fact that they were about to step onto a new planet where they would build a new world, assuming they didn't burn up in the atmosphere and did survive the landing. Okay, Anna, let her rip. He clicked off with Anna's delighted giggle rippling in his ear. He always got a laugh out of his Western American way of speaking. Crystal City began spinning faster, moving from a slow, cumbersome rotation into a finely tuned orbital spin, accelerating until he felt he was on an endless nightmarish theme park ride that would never end. Dimly lit figures of his control crew were fighting to monitor their stations, some puking into bags, others leaning back and laughing hysterically, a result of the motion drugs Doc Matt had generously supplied. Paul could see from his monitor that the shell was heating. Just before it turned orange, his picture fuzzed out. The camera must have burned to a crisp. He just stared at the temperature display, willing it to stay below superheat temp of 1,000 degrees centigrade. It finally leveled out at about 800 degrees before he began to believe they were actually going to make it. The city's rotation began to slow in preparation for touchdown. Elation began to replace doubt. They were actually going to set this monster on solid ground. When they had broken Crystal City away from Mars, no one really cared how they would get it back on the surface of a planet. They were desperate to keep their freedom, so were completely focused on slipping past the military. Paul's thoughts were wandering a bit when they hit ground. It was a head-jarring, jaw-wrenching impact as the city continued to spin, slowly quickly till it finally came to a halt, slowing quickly till it finally came to a halt. After the roaring, grinding maelstrom of hitting the surface, the silence was deafening. No one moved, no one spoke, not a sound could be heard. It was as if no one wanted to be the first to check to see if the dream could possibly be real. Paul broke the trance. Okay, people, we are down. Emily, get me a damage and injury report. Ted, do a systems check. Everyone stand by stations till we know where we stand. He snapped his comlink with no response. Ted, can we get comlink? Ted checked his array. Sorry, boss. We burned some circuits coming in, and that was one of them. Man, what a ride. Wasn't that great? He was all smiles, like a kid just off a roller coaster. It was what was needed to break the tension in the crew. Everyone began talking and laughing at the same time. Paul looked at Ted and shook his head, laughing. Damn, it was good to have a guy like him in control. Nothing kept that boy down. Okay, people, we still have work to do, so keep it down. I got to go check engineering and tech because we have no comm link. I'll keep in touch by wristcom. Everyone, get your old wristcoms and get them powered up. We'll stay in touch that way. Ted, you have control. Emily, you are second. I'm out of here. Paul jumped through the hatchway and landed running, heart pounding, dropping down 2 levels to tech to check out Anna. He needn't have worried. She was all smiles, sitting on her favorite stool, reviewing data from the orbit and touchdown. Her sweet greeting told him she was just fine, obviously quite self-satisfied with the results. Man, he would have to energize if he was going to handle her after this. She would be a wild woman. I see you are comfortable and safe here. He spoke with a bit of sarcasm in his voice. Yes, sweetie, everything's fine here. You go on and do your job. I'll see you in a few hours at our apartment. What happened to Comlink? Paul leaned over and kissed her on the cheek. I'm checking on that now. Use your wristcom for now. I'll see you later. He spun on his heel and headed over to the infirmary to check with Matt on injuries since Emily had no way of communicating to get a report. The darkness of the interior of the ship did not immediately concern him until he realized it should be much brighter from sunlight coming through the shell. As he slowly made his way down 2 more levels, he kept considering why there was no light inside his city. He flicked on his wristcom. Anna, we have no ambient light in the ship. Ted told me we had no night on this planet, so why don't we have light? Anna came on the wristcom with a bit of derisive laughter in her voice. Paul, honey, the shell got cooked to a fine, dark charcoal crust. You won't be seeing any light through it ever again. By the way, how are we going to get out of this thing when we decide we want to? Paul shrugged to himself. One thing at a time was his motto. We'll figure that out when the time comes. Out. Doc Matt was very busy when Paul arrived at the door of the infirmary. Hey, Doc, it looks like you got business again. Matt looked up and smiled, then waved him over. With an expression of anxious enthusiasm on his face, he spoke excitedly. Did this man ever have a bad day? Hey, boss, I want you to see this. This little girl fell down during our entry and cut her arm. Melissa, say hi to Paul. He's the boss of the city and it's who helped us to get our new home. Paul smiled and knelt to say hello to Melissa, shyly held out her hand to be shaken. Well, hello, Melissa. What happened to your arm? As soon as she had something to talk about, her shyness evaporated. I had to go potty, but when I tried to get out of my chair, I fell against the table and it scratched my arm. But it feels all better now. Doc Matt says it'll be all well very soon. Paul turned to Matt with question in his eyes. Matt nodded in agreement, then inclined his head to Paul as if he wanted to tell a secret. This scratch is what I wanted to show you. It happened only an hour ago, but it has healed so quickly it looks like it's 3 days old. If this keeps up, it will be completely healed without a scar in less than 24 hours. How is that possible? What kind of Eden have we stumbled onto? If what I think is happening, we are in for some unusual surprises. Paul stepped away and headed for the door. Right now, this Eden is a very hot place with no water, so I'm not sure how wonderful the surprises will be. It would take him 6 months to agree with Matt that this was indeed an unusual and wondrous world. It would happen precisely at the moment Dr. Anastasia Trubitska announced to him that she was pregnant with my first sibling. I didn't come along for several hundred years later.